They found Jennifer Kesse's car. They had surveillance footage, and somehow the man who parked it still couldn't be identified, because in every frame that should have mattered, his face was blocked. Not blurred, not too dark to see, blocked. As if the one piece of footage that should have changed everything was useless the moment it was recorded. And Jennifer Kesse was never seen again. Jennifer Kesse was 24 years old. She had a job, a routine, a new condo, and the kind of life that doesn't suggest anything is about to go terribly wrong. That's part of what makes this case so unsettling. It doesn't begin with chaos. It doesn't begin with a threat. It begins like a normal morning. Jennifer had recently returned from a trip with her boyfriend. Nothing, at least on the surface, suggested that she was about to vanish. No dramatic warning, no obvious danger, no moment anyone could point to and say, "That's where everything changed." She was living in Orlando, Florida, in a condo complex that was still under construction in parts. Workers were often around the property. Cars came and went. People moved through the area without drawing much attention. And in a place like that, it becomes easier for something strange to happen without immediately looking strange at all. On the morning she disappeared, Jennifer never made it to work. That alone was enough to worry the people who knew her, because this wasn't normal for her. She didn't just vanish from her routine, she broke it completely. No call, no warning, no explanation. And when people started trying to reach her, nothing about the silence felt right. That's the first thing that makes this case disturbing. Not what was found, what wasn't. No clear sign of panic. No obvious struggle in the condo, no message left behind, no clean narrative, just absence. And in cases like this, absence is one of the worst things you can get because it leaves room for everything. Later, her car was found abandoned at another apartment complex about a mile away from where she lived. And for a moment, that should have been the turning point. Because now there was something physical, a location, a place where someone had left behind a piece of the story. And that usually means progress. Usually, it means the case is finally starting to become smaller, more defined, more solvable. But in Jennifer's case, finding the car only led to the most frustrating part of the entire investigation. There was surveillance footage. A camera had captured the moment someone parked Jennifer's car. That should have been huge. That should have been the break investigators needed. A person connected directly to her disappearance. A real image, a real body, a real moment. Except when they looked at the footage, the face was never visible. Not once. As the person walked past the camera, fence posts blocked the face in every key frame. Every single time there should have been a clear shot, there wasn't. And that detail is almost too strange to sound real. Because the footage doesn't feel useless at first. At first, it feels close. It feels like the answer is right there. You can see the person. You can see the movement. You can see the body, the timing, the distance. You can see almost everything, just not enough. And that's what makes it worse. If there had been no camera at all, the case would feel empty. But there was a camera, there was footage, there was a person, and somehow that still wasn't enough to identify the one individual who might have mattered most. That kind of frustration changes a case. Because now investigators weren't dealing with a total mystery. They were dealing with something even more disturbing. A clue that should have helped, but didn't. a piece of evidence that made the case feel closer to solved while actually keeping it just out of reach. And that changes how people remember a disappearance. Jennifer didn't just vanish. Her case got painfully close to an answer and then stopped. That footage is a perfect example of why certain disappearances stay in people's minds for years. Not because there are no clues, but because the clues that do exist feel almost cruel, close enough to matter, wrong enough to fail. Investigators looked into different possibilities. Some believed the person who moved the car may have been connected to work happening around Jennifer's condo complex. Others believed someone may have been watching her routine, learning when she left, when she returned, when she was alone. And that possibility is part of what makes the case feel so uncomfortable. Because Jennifer didn't disappear in some isolated place. She disappeared in the middle of ordinary life, at home, near work, inside a routine that should have made her safer, not more vulnerable. And when that happens, the case stops feeling distant. It stops feeling like a story. It starts feeling like something that could happen quietly, without noise, without warning, without anyone realizing they're looking at the beginning of a disappearance. The surveillance footage only deepens that feeling, because the person who parked the car doesn't look dramatic, doesn't look panicked, doesn't look rushed. There's something chilling about that too. The calmness, the normal movement, the way the footage doesn't scream for attention. It just sits there, cold, ordinary, and wrong. That's why the video is so effective and so disturbing. It doesn't show violence, it doesn't show Jennifer, it doesn't show the act itself. It shows something quieter than that, the aftermath. A person moving through a frame as if this is just another moment in the day. And the more normal that looks, the more unsettling it becomes. Because Jennifer Kesse was a real person with a real routine and a real life that simply stopped. And the best visual clue in the case doesn't reveal the answer. It reveals how close they came, without getting there. That's the detail people remember. Not just that the camera caught someone, but that it caught almost enough. And in a case like this, almost is unbearable. Years have passed and the case still carries that same tension. Not because people forgot it, because they didn't. Jennifer's name stayed alive precisely because the case feels unfinished in such a specific way. There's a shape to what happened, a route, a car, a person on camera, and still no final explanation. That's what makes the entire thing feel suspended, like the truth passed directly in front of the lens and still didn't stop.
What makes Jennifer Kesse's disappearance so disturbing isn't just that she vanished. It's that the case got unbelievably close to an answer. They found the car. They had surveillance footage. They had a person connected to that moment. And somehow, they still had nothing they could truly use. The camera caught him, just not his face. And that single detail turned what should have been the breakthrough into one of the most frustrating pieces of evidence in any disappearance case. Jennifer Kesse was never seen again, but the image of the person who may have known exactly what happened to her is still there, walking through the frame, visible enough to haunt the case, not visible enough to solve it.